way through a whole calculus course.
Yep. Or just as I need to learn it.
Did that start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Finally, back-to-back weeks, back to a more regular schedule. Okay, so probably don't have to spend a ton of time on review today, but let's reset the scene and remind ourselves what all the major players are doing. So last time was pretty much all about the Second Samnite War, and we covered roughly the first half of the Second Samnite War. Started out with the Romans largely having the upper hand, and then there was the Caudine Forks, one of the worst days in Roman history. One of you observed that that's the first time we talked about the Romans going under yoke. I went and confirmed that is the first time the Roman army went under yoke. So huge humiliation for the Romans. And then they had their big bounce back with their victories there at the end. Who are our major players at the time? One sec, gotta help one of my students. There you are, and there you are. You can share those notes with her if she needs them. Our big players at the time, so we have Rome, Samnites, they're at war. We just barely ended with them achieving this 2-year truce, 2 years of peace. So that was the very last thing we talked about after the Samnite suffering some big losses. Right now, the Romans now have a pretty firm hold over the Apulians. Remember, the Apulians kept switching sides back and forth throughout the war, going with whoever pretty much was winning. So they were flip-flopping back and forth a lot. Last time the Romans were there, they kind of went through the area, conquering as they went. Trying to remember the consuls who it was. It was Philo and who's the other one? Who went through there beating them. Cursor. Okay, Cursor, yeah. So Cursor, he's our probably our biggest Roman at the time, our most famous Roman at the time. So Cursor, let's kind of remind ourselves of just his career. Early in the Samnite Wars, when the Second Samnite War first started, he was one of the first consuls, and he instantly had a bunch of success just taking towns. So he's also been a dictator that they've turned to a couple times, and where we just ended, Cursor and Philo were the ones marching up, beat the Samnites, went and took Lucaria back from the Apulians.
Did they get the
Got the hostages back. And then Philo was the one that Cursor sent to go and just kind of subjugate the rest of the region. So Apulians, now kind of firmly on the Roman side of things. Roman and Samnites got their 2-year truce. We're going to see that they get back to fighting real quick here. The Lucanians. We remember what's going on with the Lucanians. The Lucanians initially tried siding with the Romans against the Samnites. Tarentum bribed the Lucanian nobles to pretend that they'd been beaten by Romans, and so the Lucanians switched to the Samnite side. The Samnites took a bunch of Lucanian hostages and put a bunch of garrisons in Lucanian cities, so the Lucanians are now firmly on the Samnite side. So the Lucanians and Samnites now pretty firmly allied. The Romans and the Apulians now pretty firmly allied. Tarentum, Taurus on this map, but Tarentum, the Greek city, kind of like the godfather of the Greek cities in southern Italy, is just trying to do anything they can to kind of put a stalemate up here. They do not want Rome to continue their expansion. So that's big picture for the nations, what's going on. Did we miss anything that you can think of? Covered the big event, our biggest guy, Cursor. Politics, Roman law. What's going on? Any changes Roman laws-wise?
All the small cities around the Roman territory are starting to take on their government.
Yeah, so this is a huge thing that starts happening. As Rome is expanding their territory, people under Roman control, at the time, Rome just let you manage your city how you wanted. People are now coming to Rome, asking Rome to help them write up laws and get the same kind of stability that Rome has achieved in her own city. And so, yeah, a lot of stability so far. How long has it been since you actually changed the government? It's been pretty long now.
Yeah.
Is that Samnite leader still relevant?
No. So whatever the Samnite names were, they're going to become largely irrelevant. But yeah, so now you have Roman laws organically spreading. It's not Rome enforcing her laws on people. It's people under Rome, now of their own free will and choice, adopting Roman laws. So not only is Roman influence spreading, not only is Roman citizenship spreading, but Roman laws are also now organically spreading. So, Rome firmly establishing herself. What else is there? Anything else you can think of?
Should be fine.
Think that pretty much covers it? Okay, so where we just ended, Cursor and Philo marched through Samnites, beat an army there, beat another Samnite army up by Lucaria, retook Lucaria, and asserted themselves over the Apulians. Samnites came asking for peace. Rome gave them a 2-year truce. So we have peace throughout 318 and 317 BC. Nothing fun happening there. Rome uses this time to redo their army. So they're going to rebuild their army the way that they organize their army from scratch. They're now going to switch from the phalanx system to the maniple system. So how have the Romans been fighting up to this time largely? So largely up to this time, their men have been equipped with a big shield, a spear, and likely a javelin and a small sword. Now, they weren't as packed. This is a Greek phalanx. They were not nearly that packed, and their spears were not that long. They had shorter spears, bigger shields, but they were packed in tight formation. Not this tightly packed, but still packed into a tight formation. And what they would typically do is you throw your javelin as they're coming, and then you switch to your spear, fight with your spear. Once you get closer than that, use your sword. The downside to the phalanx formation, well, obvious the upside is from the front, who on earth is going to be able to get through that? Good luck. Nigh into impossible. What's the downside to it?
With the terrain in the Samnite area, there's lots of like hills and rocks and
Yeah, it's very immobile. Notice how vulnerable a formation like this is from the side. And so they have a very real problem. If you've got a big phalanx lined up right here, you know, all your spears sticking out, you're marching forward, and there's a big rock right there in your pathway, you guys have to kind of figure out how to split and go around and come back together. And so when you have this big line of your phalanx, trying to organize, split, go around that, and come back together is a very hard thing to do. And in that time that you're split and trying to come together, you are very vulnerable from the side. That is a chance for someone to come and attack you. Also, you need level terrain. You can't have your phalanx is coming up and suddenly there's a drop and then it continues like that. Because wherever that drop is, that's where they're going to attack you at. And so you need very level terrain, and it's very hard to mobilize. Flat, level ground. Now, if you have that from the front, it's almost impossible to beat it. So that's its advantage, but its disadvantage is it's not mobile, can't do well in rough terrain, and it's real easy to outmaneuver it. So you need big long lines of it in tight areas that are blocked up from like 2 mountains. Outside of that, just doesn't work very well. So they're updating their way of fighting to what they call the maniple system. So now we're going to have roughly 5 types of troops. First off, we'll talk about the cavalry. Nothing changes with the cavalry, the equites. What are they? What do they have? They're largely just
horses,
lightly armored on horseback with just a spear. That's typically what they have.
They're the nobility, right?
They're typically the nobility. Definitely the wealthy. So they're still the same as what they were before. Cavalry doesn't change much. Now, your 3 major troops that do the majority of the fighting are going to be your Hassadi, your Principes, and your Triarii. We'll start with your Velites here. So your Velites, these are going to be the poor masses will qualify to be a Velite. They are going to be the ones that have almost no armor, just a helmet. They typically put a wolf skin on top of them to help make them easily recognizable. They're your Velites. These are going to be your skirmishers. They're going to be the ones, what's it called, when you're blocking screening the army.
Oh.
So they're the ones that they line up in front of the army while the army's getting in formation to screen them from the enemies. They throw their javelins, and once they throw their javelins, they scatter from the battlefield. They're not going to stick around. So they do not do the bulk of the fighting. Their job is simply soften up the enemy. Throw your javelins into them to make them try and give way. Now, the javelins that they have designed here, this one shows it a bit better. You notice that they have a kind of fat right there holding the javelin in there, and there's actually 2 pegs, and it's kind of designed to break on impact. And so what they do is they throw the javelins, they're trying to get them in your shield and have the handle kind of break down. And it makes it very unwieldy to try and get the stupid thing out. And it renders your shield kind of useless. It's awkward to try and operate your shield with that javelin shoved in it at a weird angle. So that's what they're doing, pelting you, making your shields useless, trying to get through to some of you, soften you up for when the actual fighting starts. The majority of the fighting is going to be handled by these three guys. Well, these two, but them as well. So, next we have our Hastati. What are our Hastati? They're going to be our light infantry. They're going to be given 2 javelins that they can throw. Outside of that, they just have a big shield and then a sword. These are going to be your younger regular soldiers, your new recruits. They start out as a Hastati. Once they get enough experience and they become a veteran, they're going to move up the ranks into what they call a Principe. So Principe and Hastati, they're almost identical. They both have the same equipment, 2 javelins, sword, sword, big shield, big shield. The only difference is their armor is going to be slightly superior, somewhat superior, maybe not slightly, somewhat superior to theirs, and they're going to be older. They're going to be your more veteran soldiers. And then finally we get to your Triarii. Your Triarii, these are going to be your most heavily armed infantry. These are going to be the elite of your soldiers. These are the best of your soldiers. And they are still just going to be using a spear and a shield and then a sword for close combat, but they're going to fight still in the regular phalanx formation. So they'll fight phalanx formation, not the rest of these guys. They'll still fight shield and spear like the old phalanx did.
What formation are they? Like, just...
They're just going to have their shield and their sword. They're not using spears anymore. No spear, no spear. So they have their javelins to throw, then they're fighting sword and shield up close.
So
it's like hand-to-hand combat, like this.
It's much closer to hand, much more maneuverable, doesn't require you to be as tightly packed. When you have that phalanx, a guy who's got his spear through can't maneuver to the side. The front guy can turn, but the guy right behind him who's also shoving his spear through there can't quickly turn to whatever's to the side. When you're just using a shield and a sword, very easy to maneuver on the battlefield. So, very mobile, not as mobile.
They put their most advanced soldiers in the phalanx. Is it because it requires the most skill, or is it?
It definitely requires the most skill and the most training to operate in a phalanx effectively, because of how tight it is.
Isn't most of the army a phalanx?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Only these guys will be using the phalanx formation from here on out.
Gotcha.
Phalanx formation requires shields and spears. That's what it requires to be in that formation. These are the only guys that have a spear anymore. No one else. Okay, so those are our 5 basic troops. We got our horseback, our cavalry, nothing changed there. Velites are your skirmishers, just pelt them with a bunch of javelins and run away. Your Hastati, light to medium infantry, 2 javelins, but then they're going to fight sword and shield. Same as a Hastati, just more experience and better armor. And then finally, heavily armored infantry fighting as a phalanx. 4 types of troops. Now, how are they going to be organized? Unless you have any question about the types, then we're ready to move on to how they're organized. So, looking down at a Roman legion, bird's eye view. If you were to look down, you would see each of these is called a maniple. So, here's maniple, here's maniple, here's maniple. What is a maniple? If we're zooming in on a maniple here, it is 2 centuries of 60 men. So, only have 60 men, still called a century. They're going to be led by a centurion and then octio, or can't remember exactly what they're called, but basically 2 captains. For each group of 60 men, 2 captains for that group of 60 men.
A maniple is 2 sets of that.
Maniple is 2 centuries for a total of 120 men.
Okay.
Are these definitions for centuries and maniple pretty consistent from Rome here on out?
No, when we switch to the cohort system, what a century is will change to be back to 100-ish. 80 fighting combatants with 20 helpers.
Okay.
But for the Roman Republic, yes, this is it from here on out.
Okay.
Until we get to the Varian reforms. So, almost where the empire
Why
starts.
would they have 2 captains? When there'd be a conflict of orders?
So, you have the centurion, who is the head. And then the octio is who takes over if the centurion dies. The centurion is required to lead from the front. The octio is required to lead from the back.
Does he move forward after if the centurion dies?
Yeah, then he'll take on the position of centurion. These 2 are combined into a maniple. One of them is called the first maniple, or the primary maniple. The other one is the second. Very creative naming. He leads the mana pool. If he dies, he leads the mana pool. If he dies, he leads the mana pool. If he dies, he leads the mana pool. He will lead these 60 men from the front. He will lead these 60 men from the back. So spreading out your leaders for those 120 men. Organize into their members. Now, you have the first and the second, or the front and the back, I think is actually what they called it. I think I just like it. The front and the back. And when they would march, the front mana pool is in front of the back mana pool. I know, very creative here. So if we look at a mana pool of Hastati, here's the mana pool. When you look at it, you have the front one and the back one. I don't like how this picture is doing it. I think they're just doing it to use all the space. But these guys should actually be lined up back there, behind them. And so when you look at a mana pool, you have the front and the back. And then next to them, you have another mana pool front back. You have another mana pool front back. So think about all these actually written up this way. Now notice what you have here. So this is what the field would actually look like from a bird's eye view as the army's out in the field. They have this checkered pattern because now what happens when you have a big obstacle right here and right here? It's not a problem at all. Each mana pool just moves to the side and then comes back together. Moves to the side, comes back to your formation. Very easy to do compared to a phalanx. Not a problem.
Where is the... Oh, they're in the front.
So the front goes right and the back goes left, basically.
Well, they line up, so this should be split like that. Front, back. Front, back. Stacked like
The
that.
entire mana pool moves over.
So the entire mana pool marches together.
Gotcha.
When it comes time to deploy for battle, the back mana pool now comes up to the front. The back comes to the front, the back comes to the front, the back comes to the front, making a solid line of soldiers. So that's why they're called the front and the back. And it's not like when they're fighting the enemy, there's these big massive holes that the enemy can just charge through. It's the front and the back. Now, what do you have? So, standard legion, first off, you have the velites out front. They're your skirmishers, they're your pelters, they're your screeners, makes like you can't see what the troops are doing. They're just going to throw whatever they have. Once they're out, they run away from the field. They're done. We're done with their fighting. Unless they need to do strategic things, but for the most part, they're out of the battle. The triangles over here are representing the cavalry. They just protect the flank, same as they always have.
Yeah, what's up with that equipite?
Equites. Those are the equites.
There's no U.
Is that a
Equites?
The U's right there.
Oh, it's a V.
That's how they do it. Okay, anyway, so there's your cavalry. What you would do, so the army would march this way towards their enemy, if we're out in the field. So out front you have your velites. The first line here is your hastati. These are your least experienced troops. So after your velites retreat from the battle, if we've got our enemies here, whatever, to fight, the velites, the back sentry in each mana pool would come up, fill the gaps, and you'd be fighting solid line. Now the fighting's going. What would happen is, first you would have the hastati fight. If they are not sufficient to win the battle, they are then would be called back, and they would run back past all the principes. And then the principes, they would come out and line up, and then they would take on the battle. So you're going to see first the hastati do the fighting. Once they become exhausted, you swap them out for the principes. And then, once the hastatis have done the job of wearing down the enemy, now your veterans come in, completely fresh, ready to just push. And typically, that's where the battle is going to be won. And it's going to be over with that. Only in the most dire of situations, the Principe would not be able to win the battle. They would then have to retreat behind the Triari. Now the Triari, their mana pools are organized the exact same, except for half as many troops. They have 30 troops in each sentry. And so, one sentry would come, fill out the gaps, making a very thin, mobile, phalanx type formation. And then the fighting would come to them. The Romans had an expression that they would use for dire situations. They would say, it has come to the Triari. And that's where the expression comes from. So typically, they don't get to do much of the fighting. Now, they're also your most elite soldiers, your most eager to fight, and so there's tons of battles where the general had to tell the Triari to take a knee. And they're forced to kneel throughout the whole battle so that they won't go charging into the fight to try and win it. And they're also intentionally held as a reserve because oftentimes, as a general, you see something going on in the battlefield, you realize something strange is going on. You don't want to pull your troops out who are already fighting. Rome always keeps troops ready to be deployed for however the situation is changing. And typically, your elites are going to be the best one at responding to that situation.
Okay, so they're kind of replacing the cavalry that way, because the cavalry is doing that.
The cavalry does help do that, but the cavalry can only do so much. So, that's how their armies lined up. And you'll notice, who always gets the most experience in a fight?
The beginners.
The beginners, your least experienced people.
And they're also most likely to die.
And they're also the most likely to die. So if someone's going to die, it is going to be not someone that you've dumped years of training into. It's going to be some poor kid on his first day. And then your elite of your elite have almost no chance of dying in a standard battle.
So you get a build reservation of elites over time.
You're building a reservation of elites, and the people who need the experience most to improve are the ones constantly getting the experience. One way to look at it. It's a growing opportunity.
Evolution.
Are the centurions of the Hastati just Hastati? Or are they like more experienced people? Like the leaders of the century?
All the officers will be exceptions.
Okay.
So they will not be regular troops. And yeah, there will typically have been soldiers that in some way stand out even above and beyond other standard soldiers. Okay. So that is, you're looking bird's eye view at a standard legion. There's 120 men, there's 120 men, there's 60 men.
Where do the consuls come in?
We'll get to the consul when we get to a consular army. So we're going to be zooming out. So I started on the smallest scale, and we're going to zoom out now to the biggest scale.
Okay.
So any other questions on this scale with, in particular, the mana pool?
How effective are these against traditional phalanx formations?
We will see them go up against not even traditional phalanx formations. We will see them against Alexander's phalanx formations and Alexander's heavy cavalry and Alexander's war elephants. Alexander the Great. And that's when Pyrrhus invades Italy. Spoiler, he loses. But he achieves many Pyrrhic victories. Okay, so we'll see that happen. Any other questions? Okay, so now let's zoom out. So we just spent a lot of time focusing on, here's a mana pool, here's a legion. We talked about one legion. Now we're going to talk about a consular army, the army that would come under a consul, and it would be 4 legions. So in one legion, you had 1,200 velites. Those were your screeners. You had 1,200 Hastati, because you had 10 mana pools, if you were to count that out. Now they're facing that way. If you were to count out the Hastati mana pools, there's 10 of them. Each one has 120 units for 1,200 Hastati. Same with the Principes. The Triarii, they also have 10 mana pools, but their mana pools are half manned. So we have half as many Triarii. And then you had a total of 300 cavalry assigned to each legion. So, total of 4,500 combatants in each legion. When you take into account the officers, the slaves, the helpers, everyone else that helps with all the logistics, they come out to about another 1,800 men.
Are they like generally just in the camp and stuff?
Yeah, it's going to be your people who are helping haul camp materials around, hauling lumber, hauling food. There's going to be tons of mules, hauling stuff around. There's people that need to lead the mules, feed the mules, all that. So, yeah, bunch of logistics type stuff that goes into this as well. We were just counting the actual combatants. So a standard consular army is going to have 2 Roman legions, which are labeled legion there. And then you get 2 legions from your allies. The allies of Rome are also responsible to provide soldiers. So 2 Roman legions, 2 allied legions. You'd have your Roman cavalry, and the allies were typically required to give twice as much cavalry, I think it was, as the Romans.
Why?
So,
Why?
Horses are expensive. I don't know if it comes down to something that simple. The Romans they kind of have a reputation for bad cavalry. It's not their strength. Their strength is their infantry, and they know that. So as they progress, they require other people to provide the bulk of the cavalry. But it could also just be, it's expensive. So you'd have 300 cavalry in each Roman legion, and then 600 cavalry in each of your allied legions.
They would all group together.
So 600 Roman cavalry on one side, 1,200 allied cavalry on the other side, for a total of 1,800 cavalry for one consular army. So when you add it all up, you're looking at roughly 18,000 men in one consular army. When you're looking at the combatants, roughly 25,000 men when you try to account for everyone. And there's one consular army for a standard consular army.
Right, and obviously every situation would be different, case by case.
Yeah, so this would be just a standard, just a norm. So when we say a consul takes an army here or there, you can assume this is pretty much what you're looking at.
How many people were living in Rome at this time?
I do not know. And I don't even dare guess.
Okay.
I want to say under Rome and Roman allied areas, I've got 600,000 in my head.
Okay.
And I'm trying to, I think that's what the Etruscans were at. And so if you think that they're comparable with the Etruscans at the time, they'd be about 600,000.
Okay.
But I don't know. Could be way off. Any other questions? Okay, so that's what the Romans are doing with their 2 years off. They're revamping their army. Now, really, this was a slow transition. Didn't happen overnight, but now the transition has officially happened, and that's the way the Romans are going to be fighting from here on out. You might not remember, but one of the times that they were fighting the Samnites, it was the time that they weren't able to set up their camp entirely, and the Samnites kept harassing them, and they had to keep retreating. Why did they have to keep retreating over and over again? They were looking for level ground to finally fight on.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't fight them on this rough terrain. Now, with the maniple system, that's no longer a problem. They don't need to be so picky about the ground that they're fighting on. People can adjust to the situation however they need. If you're a centurion in some maniple, and you see that there's something obvious that your troops could do to help win the battle, you can now go do that thing. You don't have to worry about maintaining your little hole. And someone else can help take care of that for you. Adjust as needed. So, makes it way more adaptable to whatever the situation is that it calls for. Only downside, not as good on flat ground when it comes to straight face-to-face combat. Okay. So, we're now at the year 316 BC. The 2-year truce with the Samnites is now over. Remember, they just gave them a 2-year truce. Since the truce is coming to an end, the Samnites are pushing for, now let's go to a full peace treaty, rather than just a truce. So they're not out to just extend the truce, they want a full treaty between Samnites and Rome. Let's finally just be at peace and be done with this. The Romans push back for a while, and then finally give it to them. Okay, fine, we'll give you the full treaty. So they get a full treaty. Now, once the Romans have that full treaty, the following year, we have Lucius Aemilius appointed dictator. And what the Senate has him do is go and set siege to Satricum. Where is Satricum? It is right here. Now, this map is drawing that as a Samnite city. It wasn't a Samnite city, but it was a strongly under the influence of Samnite city. And when Romans would write up their treaties, they made it very clear exactly who they were at peace with. And that peace treaty did not include this city, Satricum. And so now they're going to set siege to Satricum, an independent city that's strongly Samnite allied. So Rome breaking the spirit of the treaty without violating the treaty. Samnites, that's one of their allies for forever. They feel that they have no choice but to aid their ally city. So they're going to have to go send an army to deal with this Roman attack. So you got Satricum, the city. There it is. The Romans come and they set up their camp. As they're besieging the city, the Samnites are now forced to set up an army. And what they do is they sandwich the Roman camp between Satricum and themselves. And then the Samnites, they're able to send messengers back and forth with Satricum. There's no way for Rome to stop it completely. And they're able to orchestrate a time for both of them to attack the Roman camp from both sides simultaneously.
At this point, do the Samnites know about Roman military reforms?
I would guess that they did.
Okay.
That would be pretty hard to keep secret.
Imagine the army's full of spies.
Plus, there's
Reverse.
just information always spreading back and forth. Yeah, I think that'd be almost impossible to keep secret.
Oh.
So I think they
It
know
doesn't
roughly
include-
what it is that they're up against, but I'm not positive. So, having Roman sandwiched between them, they organize a time that they're both going to attack at the exact same time. And then that attack comes one day. Satricum, they open their gates and they all sally out, charging out to attack the Roman camp from one side. And the Samnites, they charge out, attacking the Roman camp from the other side. What does Aemilius do in this situation? He has just enough men to hold off the Samnites inside the Roman defenses as he can, go and fight off the Samnites, while he sends the rest of his army to go and hurry up and deal with whoever's coming out of Satricum. Because these aren't going to be your trained soldiers. These are going to be whoever's running out of the city. This is your trained army.
Yeah.
And so he does the bulk of his fighting this way to hurry up and get them off the battlefield, have them run back into their city. Once they run back into their city, he then sends his full might up against the Samnites. And it's a long, drawn-out battle with the Romans finally getting the upper hand and winning the battle. Now, it wasn't a decisive victory where they destroyed the Samnite army and got their camp or anything like that. By the time the Samnites were retreating back from the Romans, it was getting dark already. So it took all day for them to do all that. I'm not sure when the attack started. They could have started at like noon or something, planned so that the Romans wouldn't be able to pursue them if they did lose. And so even though Rome wins, they're kind of back where they started with the Samnites there, Satricum there, except for they got a victory, so they had the moral upper hand. But outside of that, not much else. So the Samnites decide, well, this is a bad idea. Rather than trying to attack the Romans, we need to come up with a way to draw them away from the city. And so they go over into some allied Roman territory. I have no clue where the city is. Its name is up here somewhere. Apulia, that one. So that city. And they march over to that city, and they go camp outside that city, and they go and they set siege to that city, trying to get the Roman army to come draw off and come attack them. Aemilius completely ignores that. So he just continues his siege. Samnites, it was a bluff. They're not going to take the city. And so at the end of the campaigning season, they're going to just go back into their territory. So Satricum is still being besieged. Nothing happened with that other Samnite army. But Samnites still pretty much have their entire army. Didn't suffer any major losses. That covers 316 BC. Any questions there?
Is siege equipment becoming more and more of a thing around this time? Or?
Not like you would think, nothing like a catapult or anything like that.
Or like
But just putting up towers, yes. Ladders, yes. Battering rams, yes. But the standard is still to starve them out. Okay. So, following year, Cursor and Philo together are elected consuls. This is both for them the fourth time they've been a consul. And two consuls that they were the ones who, in the previous year, right before the truce, marched through the Samnite territory and went back and got the city of Lucaria and got the 600 hostages saved. So,
I thought you had to be, like, your terms had to be like 10 years
they're
apart.
supposed to be 10 years apart.
Yeah.
But there's always an exception when there's war. And let's see, Rome, they shut the gates of, what was the god's name?
Jupiter's.
No, Janus.
Janus.
The gates of Janus, the temples, the gates to the temple of Janus are only closed twice. Remember, they're open during war, closed during peace. And we know the two times are once after the second Punic Wars, and then another time in Augustus Caesar's day. So, outside of that, Rome's always at war. Okay, so we're in our next year. These two are once again elected consuls for a fourth
Who
time.
were they at war with when they were at peace with the Samnites?
There's so many minor groups all over the area that's just
Okay.
always fighting. And even like particular cities that you never made peace with, and so you're still at war with them. So it never ends. But we have Cursor and Philo, those two that we know and love, elected consuls. And then they appoint Quintus Fabius, can't remember his last name, Rullianus or something like that. Quintus Fabius is dictator. This is the same Quintus Fabius who was Cursor's master of the horse when Cursor tried to have him killed.
Oh, I remember that.
So it's that Fabius and it's that Cursor. Those two same people. And so now he's the consul, but he's appointed dictator. So he's now over him in the ranking, the lineup of things. Now I think it's safe to say that Philo was the one who nominated him dictator and not cursor, but those are the two we're talking about. Okay, so following year 315 BC, they're still just continuing their siege down there at Satricum. I should probably make a note before we continue with this. 315 BC is a year in Roman history that is a giant mess. And nobody knows what happened this year. There's a bunch of conflicting accounts. There's confusion because one of Livy's books, someone after him wrote one, and they added a chapter as an editor that people later thought was Livy, and so a bunch of sources reference it like Livy wrote it. So that's one thing that adds a bunch of confusion. And then there's just conflicting accounts. It's a mess. And I have no clue if this is what happened this year. This is me trying to piece together, just using Livy as much as I can, what happened. So, big asterisk. But here's what happened. They continue the siege down there against Satricum. And once again, the Samnites have to send an army to relieve it. So it's going to be the exact same tactic. Satricum, Roman army, Samnite army, sandwiching Rome between Satricum and the Samnite army. This time, your dictator, Fabius, is the one leading the army. So dictator in charge this time.
Why was there a dictator in charge? What was the emergency?
I don't know.
They just appoint big
It's a
dictators
crazy
all the
year,
time.
nobody knows.
Enough of a threat from the Samnites. You didn't get the decisive victory. Who knows? But Quintus Fabius appointed dictator. I can give you one of the rationalizations, and it's going to be one of the stories that we're not covering here. But one of the ways that it goes is one of the consuls was off somewhere dealing with some problem. One of the other consuls was off somewhere else dealing with some problem. And so he was appointed to be the one to go there. And that's one of the stories. Who knows? But we do know that he was the dictator. Okay. This time, Fabius, he's the one leading the army. He's got his Roman army here. As he's besieging the city, he sees the Samnite army show up. This time, what does he decide to do? He says, I'm going to pretend that they don't even exist. And I'm going to send my whole army to try and storm Satricum and take it. He left inside of here a garrison to hold on to the camp, along with all the cavalry, because cavalry aren't particularly useful when you're sieging a city. Of course, because you can't climb ladders very well. So, that is his plan, completely ignore whatever the Samnites are doing, and just hold out against them. Leaving enough men that he thinks that they'll be able to hold out against them. But they are not to go attack the Samnites, they are just to hold out against them. And he's going to try and hurry up and take the town. Once we have the town, then we'll turn around and we'll deal with the Samnites. So that's his plan. Good so far?
Is it safe to say that the treaty is broken?
Yeah. Treaty's broken when the Samnites, the same year that they got their treaty, it was broken. Yeah. So we'll need the truce really lasted. Rome gave him the treaty, but didn't really want to give him the treaty. So they gave him a treaty that they knew that they'd break. Okay. So that's their plan. That's how they're going forward with the plan. Well, when the Samnites see the Romans all attacking the town, what are they going to do? Do you attack the other soldiers? No, you go for the camp, of course. Now, there could be a rational, could be more than just greed. It could also be that take the camp, there's nowhere for them to retreat to. And now they're sandwiched and you can get a decisive victory taking out the entire Roman army.
They might have also been worried about being flanked from behind with the cavalry.
I don't know if they know that the cavalry's in there or not. But whatever it is, they send out their army, and now their army is just trying to take the Roman camp. They were under strict orders inside the Roman camp to just hold out. Well, the master of the horse, he can't stand the Samnites just attacking the camp and them holding out. He says, forget that. I'm going to take the cavalry out a different gate from the camp, and we're going to come around and we're going to slam into the Samnite army and break them away from attacking the Roman camp. So he's going to put an end to the camp, this attack himself with the cavalry. So he takes the cavalry, charges them from the rear. He's able to kill the general of the Samnites in it, hoping that that would be enough to get the Samnites to scatter. That doesn't work. It just infuriates the Samnites. And all the Samnites who are aware it just happened, every single one of them target their javelin on the master of the horse himself. And so he's just pelted with javelins right after killing the general. He infuriated the Samnites. And then there's a big fight back and forth trying to get the commanders' bodies. The Romans are able to get the master of the horse's body and get it back into the Roman camp and retreat back to the Roman camp. So, fought them off, and now they're back in the camp, and now the Samnites are kind of without a head. They don't have their general anymore. Romans back in the camp, lost master of the horse, he's now dead. These guys still fighting. Now, here's one of the confusing stories, but so the story goes. Fabius had predetermined a time where people inside the Roman camp were supposed to set fire to part of the camp to make it look like the camp had been taken. Why does he want it to look like the camp has been taken? So that these guys fighting know that there is no retreat. You have to take the city, no way around it. And so that works, and they're able to take the city.
Okay.
And so they take the city. When they take the city, they come back out of the city to fight the Samnite army. The Samnite army is largely in confusion. He appointed a new master of the horse, don't know what his name was, and sent him to take the cavalry around once again to hit him from the back. And so now the Samnites, in complete confusion, without their general, complete chaos, finally take a serious loss, and on top of that, lose their camp.
And the city.
And they lost the city once again, back in Roman control. Or, I don't know if it's once again, maybe that's the first time we get it. Good so
Well,
far?
if they're that heavy under Samnite influence, then probably first time.
Okay. Oh,
Scooch.
Yeah.
There you go. You're way out of frame.
okay. Okay. I am?
No,
Did
you're
it
good
zoom?
now.
Your arms are in, but that's about it when you're talking.
Okay. We'll keep going. I'll zoom you right. Alright, now here's one of the things that we have almost no real documentation of, but we're pretty sure it happened. The Battle of Apulia. Unfortunately, Livy was writing for people who knew all about this battle. And so he doesn't bother with much detail. He just kind of mentions, and here's where it happened, goes on its merry way. So, there was this battle that happened. Here's our guess as to where that location is. What happened? While you have the siege going on, it would be over there on the map somewhere, the Samnites sent another army into the Roman territory. Once again, with the plan of relieve the siege by sending an army somewhere else so that they're forced to withdraw their army and come fight us. The Romans decide that they're not going to do that. They instead get another army of new recruits to deal with whatever that Samnite army is. We also don't know who is leading this army. Some accounts say it's the master of the horse that died at the other battle, and that he actually died in this battle. So it's a mess of everything. But what we're pretty sure of is that there was a battle somewhere around here, Samnites versus a new recruit Roman army, and the Samnites win. So those poor Roman recruits get beaten out there somewhere. And that's all the detail we really have. How bad it was, who it was, I have no idea. But it's bad enough that it's going to make other towns start thinking that Rome is now the one losing the war, not winning the war. So it must have been a pretty bad loss for them. So, Romans suffered that defeat. Some say Quintus Aulus, whatever, died there. That would have been the master of the horse that died at the other place. But Livy specifically says he died at the other place.
So this year is really just
It's a mess.
a mess.
But whatever it is, there was definitely a big defeat somewhere at Apulia, or whatever it is, Apulia. And this is going to cause a bunch of towns in Rome to rebel to the Samnites. Most of the towns are going to be Arunci towns. The Arunci are right here. They've already been conquered by the Romans, so a bunch of Arunci towns are going to switch over to the Samnites. And one of the towns, and there's other towns that aren't just Arunci, it's just the bulk of the towns of the Aruncis. One of the other towns that aren't an Arunci town that switches over is Sora up here. Now, Sora, we've talked about it before, and this is one of the towns that the Romans had established a colony in. Now, remember what a Roman colony is. That's when you take a bunch of plebs and actually send them there to start living there. So a bunch of actual Roman citizens living there. And when Sora rebels to the Samnites, they massacre all the colonists.
Ooh.
So now we're at the end of, what was the town down there that got taken? Satricum or something like that? So once that one has now been taken by Fabius, our dictator, This battle has already been lost, and the other Samnite army is already back in its territory. He knows that a bunch of towns are rebelling, but he gets word of what happened at Sora, and that's priority one for him. We're going to go deal with Sora before we deal with any other rebelling towns. So that's where he heads off to.
Wait, who killed the officials or whatever? What'd you call them?
The officials,
Okay, at Sora,
Master of the horse.
the master of the horse,
Consuls.
the Master of Horse killed who at Sora?
so the master of the horse killed the Samnite general
General, yeah.
In the war.
in the fight.
Yeah.
So he brought the cavalry around,
Yeah, I got that part.
killed the general, and then quickly died himself right after the fact.
I'm talking about. Wait.
And then up here, as a completely separate army, who was leading this other Roman army? I don't know. So the Samnites came and invaded with the second army here while that siege is going on. Rome sent a second army under,
Because they were out.
I don't know,
Yeah.
to come and intercept them, and that new army got defeated.
Yeah, I got that part.
And that defeat leads to rebellions.
So what happened at Sora?
So at Sora, when Sora gets word that Rome has just lost this battle,
They rebel.
they rebel.
And they massacred.
And they massacre all the Roman colonists in their city.
Okay. That's
Because
the-
they're a Roman town.
That's the only part I missed.
Okay, so that's what Sora did that enrages Fabius so much, and why Sora is going to be top of his priority list for what comes next. Okay.
Is Sora close to the Orense?
No. Here's Sora, here's the Orense. I mean,
Yeah, roughly.
whatever close means. But there it is. So he's going to be now marching from here's the city he just took up to Sora to deal with what's going on, to deal with that rebellion. That's where Fabius is going. Good so far?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wait, it's not going to be Fabius. I lied.
No, that's the
No,
other
he
guy
died.
who came from.
No, Fabius is still alive as Master of the Horse died.
Oh, because he was.
We'll see Fabius again.
He was the master of the horse.
Okay, but I lied. All that took a complete year. So it's going to be the next year that things happen. So even though they got that town, and now the Roman army's back at Rome, we have a bunch of towns revolted, including Sora, and Sora massacred their population. So now we're going to go to 314 BC with new consuls being elected. So Fabius, no longer dictator. Cursor and Philo, no longer consuls. Okay, so new consuls elected. And now, priority one, deal with Sora. That's how Rome, the entire Senate, feels. So the new, both the consular armies, they're going to be both together marching on Sora. They go, they show up on Sora, they set up their camp, however they do. As we have the S. So we got our Roman camp. And there's a traitor inside of Sora who says he's going to help the Romans get the city. Some speculate that he's one of the colonists that managed to survive the massacre. But he tells the Romans, what you need to do is you need to withdraw your army 6 miles away. It will be obvious that your army is that far away, and then people inside the city of Sora, the garrison, they will lower their guard, and things won't be so bad. Then what we're going to do is you're going to have a few hundred men. There was some wooded area over here, some trees over here. So we're going to have 100 men or so hiding in those trees, and I'm going to sneak 10 men into the city myself. Now Sora, wherever its citadel is located in the city, the pass up to the citadel is an extremely narrow pass. It's very easy to defend. He said 3 men could block the pass themselves. So 10 Romans should easily be able to hold on to the citadel. So that's the plan they go. The Roman camp, it moves away 6 miles away. Sora down nose, Roman camp far away. They left 100 or so men off in the woods somewhere, hiding. And the traitor, he sneaks 10 men all the way up into the citadel. Now they got the citadel. Now what does the traitor do? He runs through the city screaming, the Romans have taken the citadel. And so people go and they start seeing, yes, there's Romans up in the citadel. And so mass panic spreads through the city that Rome's in the citadel. And so they start fleeing the city and they throw open the gates. And as they throw open the gates, they throw it open to 100 Roman armed men ready to charge into the city. And so they quickly take it.
Wasn't there a garrison or something inside the citadel?
There was a garrison. inside the city. Whether they were located in the citadel or not, I don't know. It would have only been a few men, and then the Romans would have had to have snuck in and kill them. But whatever it is, they quickly were able to get the citadel, and then everyone was able to confirm with their own eyes, yes, Romans are in the citadel. So the panic to open the gates, run into a fully armed Roman army. Now they timed this late in the night when most people would have been sleeping. So he specifically says a bunch of the garrison who were responsible for defending the city charged out of the city, not even bothering to arm themselves first. They just woke up, here Rome's in the citadel, and so a bunch of the garrison who's responsible for defending these people are booking it out of the city right into the Romans. And so,
Did you say 100 armed Roman men, or is it a full army?
not a full army.
Okay.
Couple hundred. 100, 200, I don't know.
So funny.
He says
Yeah, it's for sure funny.
the word that got translated is a cohort. But they're not using the cohort system at this time. But understand that someone writing what something Livy would have written, and so 100 or so men, couple hundred men. Anyways, so they easily take the city. Now, when they take the city, easily able to kill all the men whoever they were fighting against. And then they go and they identify who is responsible for the rebellion. They find 225 people responsible for the rebellion that hadn't been killed yet. And so those 225 are sent now back to Rome, and they're going to be first beaten and then beheaded as punishment. Send a message to everyone else. And now, from here on out, Sora is going to have to support a Roman garrison, and Rome's going to keep a garrison there as well. Once again, the idea being, if you're willing to support a Samnite garrison, you're going to be willing to support a Roman one. What?
Are they gonna have colonists again too?
Uh,
Or just a garrison?
they're going to have colonists, most likely. We're going to see them conquer a bunch of towns, and then Rome sends out a total of 4,000 colonists. And how they settle in the different cities, I don't know. But most likely, yes, more colonists are going to be sent there again at the end of the campaigning season. Okay, so that was Sora. Sora is now taken. Now, 12 leading men from 3 Arunti cities, 3 of the bigger Arunti cities, Asona, whatever they are, located, no, that's not one of them. Here's one of them, the Miniturne one. Bessia, right next to it. And some of these might not be on the map. Sonia, whatever. But Arunti cities, 12 noblemen from that city, they get word of what happened in Sora, and they say, if it's not broke, don't, or if it's not broke, don't fix it, yeah. So they're going to repeat the exact same strategy. Once again. And so they have the Roman army go and locate itself somewhere where it's a good distance from any of those towns. Once again, they have a couple hundred men hide in places that you can hide close to the city. Wherever the third city is, we'll just pretend it was that one, even though it's not. And then sneak just a couple men in to take the citadels. Now they time this all, the particular day, the particular time of night, so it's all happening simultaneously. So that no city can communicate to another city that this is what they're doing here. And so all 3 cities are all taken within the same hour. So Livy says. So that's how well they have this orchestrated. With the bulk of the Roman army being somewhere where everyone knows that they are, stationed away from them.
That's smart.
That's amazing.
Now, unfortunately for those poor towns, using Livy's own words, in the absence of the generals, because the generals with the actual army and not there leading the men taking the city, there were no bounds to the carnage which ensued. The soldiers ran rampant. And so it was a lot more killing than what the Romans were happy with when they got news of what happened.
Oh, so the generals weren't holding their army back.
Because the generals are staying in their camp to make it very clear, here's the Roman army, to give those cities a false sense of security.
So the 200 or whatever that actually made it in were doing all the killing.
Yeah, they went nuts killing. And so, he also had another saying at the end of this, but something to the effect of, they were punished as though they had fought in a great war against the Romans. So much of their population was killed. So they lost a ton of their population with this strategy, even though it was highly effective, killed a lot of the Arunti. And all the rest of the Arunti cities, once word spreads of what happened there, they all end their rebellion and come back in line. So that puts an end to the Arunci revolt. I don't know if
but
we'll
the
ever see
Romans
another
didn't
one.
necessarily want that. They were
No.
just like,
They still did it. So that's that. Any questions with that? Now, probably should have specified, both the consuls were together at Sora when they retook Sora. After that, one consul was sent to go down and deal with the Arunci revolt. Another consul was sent to deal with the Apulians because they got word that some stuff was brewing. Nothing had actually happened yet, but it seemed like something was about to happen, so the other consular army was already on his way over here. So he's already headed into the Apulian territory.
know what path they take generally. Do they go like up above the Samnites?
I have no idea what the path would be.
It's just like they're
Right
kind of
through.
sandwiched in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? But they also have control of some towns. Like, I think Rome is still in control of Aliphae. That's one of the ones Cursor took his first year. And so there could be some control of towns through an area that marks off a path that you're able to do. But I have no idea. Okay, so one of the consuls went down, dealt with the Arunci revolt. Other consul, he's on his way to the Apulian territory. Making his way through. Now, it just so happens that when he's approaching close to Lucaria, wherever the city is, Lucaria, they decided to betray the Roman garrison stationed there. So they did the exact same thing, except for the Samnites this time. They helped sneak Samnites into their city, and the Samnites were able to quickly kill the Roman garrison there.
Oh, wow.
So, Roman garrison quickly lost at Lucaria at the same time that a consular army happens to be marching their way. Now, Rome is furious. The second consul, he is absolutely furious because Lucaria has been giving them a lot of back and forth grief for a long time.
Yeah.
And so this is just another flip-flop by them. So, very angry about that. Second army takes the city within the same day that it was handed over. So it's just a quick retaking, and the Roman legions are furious. So they retake the city, and they kill all the Samnites and the Lucerian rebels. There's a question about, at Rome, what to do with the city. There's a huge push to kill off the population and get rid of the city. We're done with it. Take it off the map. After much discussion, they decide to just send another colony there of 2,500 men. So they're going to send a colony there. They're going to send a strong garrison there again. But yes, they are getting very sick of the city. And I'm sure that the city got news that the Senate was considering just being done with you. So here's your colonists and here's your garrison.
I feel like this has happened before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably
didn't
has.
everyone get burned alive or something? Was that over there?
That was when they took Fregelli.
Okay. Fragile, yeah.
Okay,
It's horrible.
so there's the fighting. Now, also while this is going on, Rome gets news of a conspiracy in Capua to betray them. And it potentially has some Roman support from Roman elites back at Rome, who might be being bribed in some way to assist with this. Details, no idea. Now you got both your consuls out fighting, and so they appoint a dictator, and they appoint a dictator whose job is to basically look into the conspiracies. So the dictator they appoint, Cassius Manius, I think he was a pleb, not positive, but I'm pretty sure he was a pleb. Could be wrong.
We haven't gotten internal Roman politics.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of internal strife for a bit, so we'll see some internal strife. So he starts getting to the bottom of things, what's going on. He starts to realize who at Capua is responsible. The two leading men there at Capua, when they realize that dictator's onto them, they kill themselves before he can even bring them on trial.
Wow.
Because they don't want to be beaten and beheaded. So, better to just hurry up and kill themselves. Now, a bunch of the Roman nobles wanted Caius here to step down from the dictatorship. You looked into the conspiracy that you were called to look into. Remember, when you're appointed as dictator, you're given a specific job. And he says, my specific job was not to look into the conspiracy of Capua. My specific job was to look into conspiracy. And so now we're going to look through the Romans and start seeing which Romans are involved in any conspiracy. Now this is a pleb. I'm pretty sure, could be wrong, but this is a pleb, at least someone who is not considered one of the elites in Rome. The reason that they appointed him a dictator is not because he had great general achievements, which is typically what you want a dictator for. They specifically chose him because they thought he would be disconnected from any sort of conspiracy. So that's specifically why he was chosen. Some lowly guy. And so he decides he's going to start looking into the leading men at Rome. When they realize that that's what he's going to do, a bunch of leading men at Rome decide it's a good time to take a vacation from the city. And so they're leaving the city. He tries pressing the issue to put some of the Romans on trial. And the nobles who he's coming after come back at him and say, if anyone could be accused of participating in illegal activities to get powers, it would have to be someone like you, Caius. You're coming after us noble families who have always had power. And so there's nothing strange about us still having the power. But someone like you, who was nothing, who suddenly jumped up to the greatest position in the state, is got to be the most suspicious person in the entire state. That's our argument against him. Now, he says, that's absurd. The whole reason you guys picked me is because you knew that there was no conspiracy. But fine, if that's what you think, me and my master of the horse, we will step down and we will be the first ones to go on trial, and then we'll come back to you guys. And so they go, they have the trial. He's found to be completely guilt-free. And then the consuls are now the ones carrying out the trials from there on out when they get back to Rome. And suspiciously, they kind of just die out and don't continue with the trials to the other nobles. And it just dies off.
We wasted time. Sounds like.
Well, they just want him to step down. And the people they had more influence over to be the ones looking into it.
Gotcha.
So, nothing goes forward there, but the trial of Capua, or the conspiracy at Capua, whatever it is, they put a stone on it. Now, I don't know how the consuls continued the trials because they weren't in the city. So maybe they don't continue the trials until they get all the way back. And it's just a leap forward in time. Because they're not getting back yet.
Oh.
So, yeah, we're still 314
Within the
BC.
year, or-
We've got one more fight same year. It was a very full year. So, once again, the Samnites, they had an army stationed near Caudine, right there. So, they've got an army stationed somewhere in this vicinity because they know of the Capuan conspiracy. And they're waiting for it to kick off. So they're ready to strike. Now, little do they know, they're waiting for nothing. Because it's not going to happen. So Samnites are stationed near Caudine, waiting for the Capua to rebel like they know it's supposed to, but it doesn't. So the Romans, they send whatever army they had in that area to go ahead and intercept them. So now the Roman army goes and they face off against them, line up against them, knowing that no armies are there, and so they're going to have their little face-off now. Now, initially, none of them are really wanting to give battle. They keep having small little skirmishes left and right. All these small little skirmishes, Rome keeps winning. So the Samnites are slowly dwindling in their numbers, while the Roman morale is constantly growing, and they're not losing as many men. And so the Samnites realize, we cannot keep this up. We've got to just fight them now. We're only getting weaker. So, of course, as an issue, they decide to go ahead and line up and fight. So they're going to fight the Roman army. How does Rome do it? Let's see. Which one do they overload? Overload left and right. So the Romans decide this time that on their left wing, they're going to put a bunch of troops, and on their right wing, it's going to be thin. I don't know how overloaded, and I don't know how thin. And they're going to be fighting up against the Samnites. And the Samnites, they have their cavalry, largest staying out of the battle. The Romans, they have their cavalry, largest staying out of the battle. So that's how they're lined up. The Roman strategy, pretty straightforward here. Overwhelm them on this side and hope these guys can hold out long enough for us to win the battle. Common tactic of the day. Okay, so battle starts going, and just as you would expect, the Roman left wing starts overcoming the Samnites, and they start winning the battle. The cavalry decide that they have to restore the battle. And so they decide to risk it and try and flank into the side of the Roman army like that. The Roman cavalry, when they see what the Samnite cavalry are doing, as the Samnite cavalry are coming in and getting ready to charge in, so now they're turned like this, going that way, that's when the Roman cavalry decides they need to flank the Samnite cavalry. And now, understand with the mana pool system, it's much easier to adjust to some charge coming from the side. So whatever happens, they charge in, do whatever damage they do. But the Roman cavalry flanking the Samnite cavalry is devastating for the Samnite cavalry. And so the Samnite cavalry takes massive losses and is driven away from the battlefield. Now, while that's going on, they get that big victory, so Samnite cavalry have to leave the battlefield with a bunch of them being killed. This wing is slowly winning this wing. The problem you have is they're losing on this side. So over here the right wing's losing, but the left wing's winning. Now they don't know that the left wing's winning, they just know what's right in front of them, which is we're losing. Eventually news spreads about what just barely happened with the cavalry and the fact that this wing's winning. And so now they know the battle's a sure thing, and so even before help comes, they restore the battle. And they stop the wing from moving. Romans end up getting a decisive victory here. This is a huge defeat for the Samnites. A huge part of it is because their cavalry gets defeated. Why is your cavalry getting defeated so big? It makes it very hard to retreat from the battle. Because the Roman cavalry can now harass you the entire time that you're trying to retreat, slowing you up enough for the infantry to always catch up with you again. And so this is just going to be a terrible retreat for the Samnites. And so the Romans pursue these poor Samnites all the way as they're retreating. I don't know why they couldn't go to Caudine, but for whatever reason the Romans stop them. And it's all the way to this city over here, at the time named Beneventium, pursuing them the entire time, harassing them, then taking losses. And so when it's all said and done, they lose 30,000 people, the Samnites do, to the Romans, either being killed or captured. A long, drawn out, constantly being attacked, terrible time for the Samnites. Huge victory for the Romans. That's a ton of losses to take. Rome has just beat the Samnite army. They don't have another army up and ready to go. That army took devastating losses. They decide, may as well go for the capital city. And so that's what they do. And they march right up here to, I have it bigger up here somewhere so I can actually read it. Bovianum, their capital city, and they set siege to the capital city. And now they're after the Samnites' capital city. Nothing the Samnites can do. They don't have an army that they can go field to fight these guys.
What's up with that other name?
There's two with that name, Bovianum. This one's the capital, and that's the one that they're at.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I read why it's called that, and then I forgot. And I was going to tell you why, but now I don't remember. Sorry. Anyways, with that, we're finally coming to the end of the year 314 BC. Very big year.
What does logistics look like for supplying food to that army? Like, do they have like a supply train? Like,
I don't know. I mean, they have control of Aliphae, which maybe they can supply from there. But probably similar to the way Rome was supplying V when they were sieging V. So whatever it is, they're now besieging it, and they know that they're not going to get the city by besieging it for a couple months or whatever. It's the capital city, and so they're in for the long haul. So when they besiege it actually setting up winter quarters. They're building year-round facilities now. They're ready for the long haul siege, just like they did at V.
Right.
This is not going to be a quick siege, you get them. So Samnites now in terrible position with their capital city now under threat, and their army just suffering a devastating loss. And with that, we will finally come to the end of the year 314 BC. Any questions there? Big year. On to the next year. Okay. New year, new consuls. So new consuls elected.
Cursor again. Jeez.
Yeah, what the heck?
Including Cursor. So here's his 5th consulship. He's the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he
You're
wasn't
that good.
consul last year, right?
No, he was the consul the year before that.
Before that.
So again, breaking their rules, not waiting the 10-year gap, shouldn't be able to be consul that many times.
Yeah.
But he's consul.
No one disagrees because he's so awesome.
I'm sure many people.
Oftentimes, when people are put in consulships like this, back to back, don't have the details on this one,
It's like
but you don't really run for the office. People just vote for you to take that position.
Oh.
And then you have to decide whether or not you're going to go against what the Roman people want. Now, sometimes we see people say, no, I'm not going to do it, so don't even vote for me, I'll refuse the position. Other times, it's kind of hard to say no when they just vote for you.
So much needs to get done. So.
Yeah, and it's also nice to have like a veteran consul
It is.
for things.
But even with him as a consul, they decide to appoint a dictator once again. Caius Papirius, he's going to be our dictator. And he's going to go and take over the siege over here with the Samnites.
What was his objective other than to take the siege?
Probably just take the city.
Okay.
Probably all they're focused on right now. I don't know. The Samnites have to do something. Oh, go ahead. The Samnites have to do something to relieve this siege. And they just took a huge massive losses in their army. They don't want to go fight a field battle. And so what they decide to do is to take their army and just go really quick, take Frigella once again. One that's already been taken, one that's already suffered, one that the Romans must feel really bad to let that city once again be conquered. And so they go, they take their army there, they're able to quickly overwhelm and storm the city and take it.
The Samnites.
The Samnites. So they quickly get Frigella. Now, once the dictator gets word that they take a Frigella, he can't let that stand, so he's going to continue the siege, leave a portion of the army, but take the bulk of it to go to Frigella and free Frigella.
Which is what Samnites wanted.
Which is what the Samnites wanted.
Yeah.
By the time he gets there, the Samnites have already abandoned the city and moved on their merry way. And they decide that they're going to hold up all the way down in Nola here as a nice fortified city for them to hang out in. So Samnites, they book it all the way down here. Dictator sees that Frigella is already safe. He decides he's just going to pursue the army. And we'll just let the siege continue, just starving them out or whatever. So he goes all the way down to Nola. One of the reasons that they use Nola is it's a very hard city to just overwhelm. What's the word when you quickly take a storm? It's a very hard city to just storm because of the buildings that are all crammed up against the walls of the city. Make it very hard to actually maneuver your way into the city. And so when he gets down there, first thing he does is says, nice try, he just burns all those buildings. Giving lots of space between the walls and the next building. And then with that, he quickly storms the city and quickly takes it. And so that strategy doesn't work out too well for the Samnites. Once he takes that city, there's some other rebelling cities in the area, or actually these are Samnite cities. So he actually then goes on to take some Samnite cities of his own, Atina and Claudia.
Yeah.
So Claudia's right there, and the other one just might not be on the map. That's not it, that's not it. Somewhere. So he decides to now go and take some Samnite cities of his own, pay him back. Except they're probably hanging on to him because then Rome decides to send a bunch of colonists now to all these newly conquered towns. So likely also have garrisons if they're going to send colonists there. Getting a strong foothold once again in all these places, including Samnia.
What's the general feelings of Samnite people towards the Romans that when they're conquered?
Rebellion, burning rebellion, burning hatred. They are creating very deep hurts with the Samnites. And we're going to see, when you fast forward 100 years, when there's a chance for the Samnites to rebel against the Romans, they're going to take it.
They're still around.
And so, well, no, they're conquered and now they're subject to the Romans, but they rebel pretty much every chance they get for the next couple hundred years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well,
Super
your
I-
grandfather dealt
Like,
with.
I think that they also help support Hannibal. Even that far into the future. Could be wrong there.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
So, building up old hatreds.
Yeah.
Or long-lasting hatreds, I mean. Okay. So, 313 BC, that's what Rome does. Still continuing their siege, but go down, get a few more Samnite towns. Next year, once again, new consuls are elected. One of them falls ill, and so, one of them falls ill. Now, finally, Rome gets word that the Etruscans are organizing an army against the Romans. So, remind ourselves, we're still very familiar with the Etruscans, the Samnites, and the Romans. Yeah, they've largely been quiet this whole time. Rome and the Etrurians haven't really been fighting much. There's some speculation that they've largely just been having conflicts with the Gauls up north, and so that's been occupying them. But then again, they could have just been focused on their own internal problems. Or maybe not even problems, just been enjoying the prosperity of being Etruscans. Who cares? We're not at war. So the Etruscans now organizing an army to come fight the Romans is terrifying for the Romans.
Yeah,
Because-
do you have any idea what the motivation is there?
Yeah,
Just
that's-
The Romans are constantly growing in power. Now they're just organizing an army. That doesn't mean they're declaring war on Rome. They're just organizing an army. Now, Rome still has control over what the Etruscans still consider very much their land. Remember, they conquered Veii, and they conquered some other cities going more north. In particular, what was it called? Satricum?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Satricum, somewhere up here. It's a city on one of the major Etruscan roads that you have to use to ultimately connect you back to the shore. And so they have a lot of control over Etruscan trade along one of their two major roads. So largely it's that city that they're going to want. Anyway, so there's word that the Samnites are now finally organizing an army. And so we are going to have one consul sent once again against the Samnites to deal with whatever the Samnites are doing.
Still sieging him right
Yeah, fight them, make sure that they can't overthrow the siege, just have an army there to deal with Samnites. And then since one of our consuls got ill, we have to appoint a dictator to replace him. So, Caius Junius Publicus? Publicus? I don't know. Publicus here. Publicus.
now. Say Booburgus.
Publicus. Alright. Publicus. Publicus is appointed dictator. Remember that name.
Interesting name.
And
Sounds more Roman.
he's going to be the one assigned to the Etruscan threat. Since he's assigned to the Etruscan threat, he's going to get as big an army as he can. So he's going to levy all military-age men to come fight with him.
Oh, wow.
And I think in Rome, that's 16 and up. So they're all going to be the ones that go up to fight the Etruscans. So he takes this big army, and he goes up, close to wherever the Etruscan army is. His army is there. The Etruscan army is somewhere stationed up in the Etruscan territory. And they kind of just face off against each other. And a whole lot of nothing happens. They never actually fight. Nothing ever happens. The Etruscans probably got nervous that Rome was getting ready to attack them. And so probably the reason that they organized the army, kind of just self-fulfilling prophecy here. Both of them hearing about each other, so they send the armies. But while nothing really happened there, what is happening while he's waiting for the fighting to go off is he is training and drilling his men. And so what's happening is he has all these young men, all military-age young men, who are just going to spend an entire campaigning season just training, waiting for this fight with the Etruscans that never comes. So getting a nice trained army while waiting for a fight that never comes.
How are the Romans doing financially at this point?
No idea. Most likely fine.
Yeah, if they're gonna just.
They're winning all over the place, and every time you get that camp, that's a lot of loot.
And not only that, they likely have intervals of taxes coming in
The harvest.
For sure.
from each village in the city.
Okay. So, let's see, levied. Both Bubicolus and the Etruscans refused to give battle. No major wars actually fought, and just trained troops the entire time. Now, I think, Livy doesn't say it, but I think the siege at Bovianum is still going on as normal, and nothing's changed there. And no fighting is mentioned in the Samnite territory, so whatever the other consul was doing, no idea.
How many years is that now? 3 years since
They started at the end of 314, so we're barely finishing the second year where it's actually under siege.
Okay, that's a long time to be started out.
Well, remember how long they set siege to Veii? It took 10 years.
Oh, that's true.
So there's always ways to sneak food into the city, depending on how the city's laid out. So 2 years, nothing strange about that. Now we got to pause in wars for a second and talk about someone whose name you've never heard, Appius Claudius.
Stud.
And then later he gets the last name Cacus or something like that. Where does this come from? Somehow it means blind or something related to blind.
Oh, okay, I'm prepared.
So what happens with Appius Claudius? Appius Claudius, never having been a consul before,
Of course.
runs for and becomes elected as a censor. Shouldn't be legal. Somehow he gets it through. He's going to be
This is the
a
same
censor.
one?
No.
No.
This is his great-great-grandson.
I was like, wait a minute.
There's from that same family line. We probably talked. This is probably the sixth one we've talked about.
Yeah, this is like,
Yeah.
there's so many
Right.
of them.
So you're being serious, he's never been a consul.
So this one has never been a consul.
No
Okay.
specific one.
So this specific Appius Claudius has never been a consul before. He runs together with
Feels like he's being rude.
Caius Claudius,
I thought Donnie was being sarcastic.
and they get elected censors.
Never been a consul.
I'll only say sarcasm, I won't write it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you can trust what's written. Okay,
And you can only be a censor if you've been a consul before, right?
supposedly.
Okay.
But here he is. Breaking the rules. Appius Claudius. Appius Claudius, once he becomes a censor, he instantly remember the job of a censor. One of the things is to evaluate how much wealth you have, but it's also determining what you qualify to vote for. And they also decide what tribe you're in. And they also maintain the Senate rolls. They decide who's a senator. What makes you a senator? A senator writing your name down on a piece of paper and saying you're a senator now. That's what does it. Now they're supposed to be following all these norms and things that are just expected of you. But there's no laws that say you have to do that. And the only law is a senator is whoever the censor writes as a senator. So once he does that, one of the first things he does is he starts reassigning people to tribes to give the plebs that supported him way more voting power. Kind of gerrymandering things. While at the same time, I can't remember, or I'm not sure exactly how this works, but apparently changing some of the qualifications to vote, the land qualifications to vote, or the wealth requirements to vote. So that when you're voting by century, more plebs can qualify in positions that they wouldn't have otherwise. So both when you're voting by tribe and when you're voting by century, he's making so that more of his people are going to be able to be there. He's going to completely play to the plebs. So already very outrageous. You don't just go moving people around from tribes and changing the requirements of what it is to qualify for certain voting positions. He ignores that and just does it however he wants. On top of that, and more outrageous to the Roman people, typically what happened is you take the previous Senate roll, and all you do is kind of get rid of whoever died and add a few people to replace them and go on your merry way. You largely leave whoever is in the Senate. When he gets the Senate roll, he completely ignores it, and he starts just deciding who the senators are. And puts a bunch of his guys as senators, people that supported him. And so now the Senate has a bunch of people that support him, and there's a lot more voters, or at least people whose vote is going to count for more now, who support Appius Claudius. Yeah, and so he's seen as trying to make himself popular with the plebs, basically trying to establish power. Now his co-censor, Caius here, is absolutely outraged. And so to try and curb Appius's power, he steps down. Why do you step down? Because if one of the two censors steps down or dies, both the censors are supposed to step down. So he steps down to force Appius Claudius to step down.
He doesn't.
Appius Claudius refuses to step down. Well, there goes that. So he's going to stay in power as the sole censor now. And remember, one of the last things that the censors have power over is public contracts, basically. They decide where public funds go. And so under him, he's going to start two great works. The first of the great works that he's going to start is called the Appian Way. This is going to be the first major road that Rome builds that isn't just inside of a city, but connecting cities together. Up until now, there aren't really roads connecting, there's paths or whatever, but not roads. I think at this time that the only major roads that exist are in the Etruscan territory. I think they have two actual roads. Outside of that, I don't think there's any roads in Italy connecting cities together.
What do roads look like right now? Just stones or what?
No, when he builds it, it's going to be paved out stones. There's portions of it still extant and in use today.
Right.
Wow.
So, actual roads, not just a dirt path that you can go walk.
So like cobblestone roads?
No, they're probably
It's like a brick, isn't it?
Like pavers, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what they use for it. You can go look at it. But yeah, legitimate roads that are now going to last. So that's one of the first things that he does, putting in this major road, and he's going to put it in to connect Rome all the way down to Capua.
Wow.
So major work. The second thing he's going to do is called the Aqua Appia, which is going to be Rome's first aqueduct. And yes, very much named after Appius Claudius, because he's the sole censor. And so no other censor gets any credit. Because he's the one who decides that this is what the funding is going to go for. Which, both of them turn out to be exceptionally good things for Rome to invest in. So, take the good with the bad. Go over each of these, the Appian Way. So, it's connecting Rome to Capua. Ignore all those roads. Those are not all roads in existence at this time. This is just a picture to show you where it is. So, the Appian Way, and I think that it is one of the longest, if not the longest runs of straight road in all of Europe from here to here. This would have been Answer at the time. So he just ran a road straight to there and then follows along connecting Capua.
That goes to show how flat Rome was and why their armies worked so well for so long.
Well, one of the things that they have had a ton of trouble with is maneuvering armies from Rome down into Capua. And the reason that that's such a pain is this area right here. Zooming in on that area right there, there is just a ton of a marshland to go through. Now, roads already make a huge difference. I don't know if you've ever tried just cutting through these fields here, which are pretty empty. Yeah. It's much easier to just walk on a road than to go on a field. You talk about how slow Roman armies go. Understand those Roman armies are not moving along roads. They're moving through whatever there is. And so, when it came to the marshes, this was just a nightmare for them. Actually, moving through all that water, a common thing that would occur as they move the army through is a bunch of the troops get malaria moving through the marshland. So it was absolutely terrible, and 19 miles of this road goes through marshlands. And they actually had to pile up the dirt, get it all really high, and build the road up on nice dry land. So you don't have to lose your feet marching through a marsh.
That's awesome.
Can't imagine how miserable that must have been.
Yeah.
So from there on out, Rome now maneuvering armies down to Capua and back up is going to be way faster than it was before, and you're going to have much happier troops doing it. Way less of a logistics nightmare. So Appian Way, that's what they're working on. I'm not sure how long it takes to get built, but it's within years, not decades.
Do you know how wide it would have been?
No, but you can go see pictures.
Okay.
It would have definitely been wide enough for a Roman army to march down in column.
How long do censors reign for?
We'll get there.
Okay.
That'll come up. Okay, so there's the Appian Way. That's the road they're putting in. First major road in Rome. And it's going to make a huge difference when it comes to logistics, moving armies around. And probably good for commerce and all those other things. Okay, any questions with that before we move to the next one? All right, on to the aqueduct. Now, the one that we're talking about, the Aqua Appia, it's this one right here. And once again, it runs 10.3 miles. Here's a piece of it still extant so that you can see what that might look like. That's what they're building. Absolutely nuts. Yeah. Now, why do they need an aqueduct? Well, the population is getting big enough that it's really easy that occasionally the Tiber River, it gets polluted. And so it gets contaminated your drinking water. And any wells you're digging in the city, it also can be contaminated drinking water. And so it's going to give them a consistent, fresh supply of drinking water. So they found, finally, a spring somewhere over in this area, and they need to run the water down this way. Now, another reason that they like this water source is it's up high. And water has a tendency to go downhill. So it's really hard to get water from the Tiber River up into Rome, up on the 7 hills. Whereas if you can get it from a higher source, then it's real easy to get it where you want it. And so, the whole name of the game when you're building an aqueduct is, first off, find a high supply of water, and as gradually as you can, give it a slope so that it doesn't drop too far by the time it gets to its end source. And to give you a sense of how nuts this was, the aqueduct only drops 30 feet in that span.
Miles?
It goes 10.3 miles, and it only drops about 30 feet. This means every 150 feet, it drops 1 inch.
That's insane.
That's how gradually down it slopes.
Create that without a level would be crazy.
Yeah, how do you even do that? How did they do that? How did they construct that?
Very carefully.
That's a whole
Very
course.
impressive. So, very impressive feat. Now Rome's going to start having a consistent supply of fresh water, and soldiers will march in much happier way, much quicker way.
Should reduce
So those are his two major public works that he gets done in his censorship. Go ahead.
He didn't step down.
So it should reduce disease and pestilence.
Yeah. Good things, both good things. Okay.
Never thought Appius Claudius would do things like
Well, they're always out to please the public.
that. That's true.
All right. So following year, 311 BC, Caius Junius Bubuculus, or whatever we called him, Bubulcus, something like that, and Quintus Aemilius Barbola, a bunch of B's, are elected archonsuls. And Junius, he's going to be the one to go and fight the Etruscans, because now, once again, the Etruscans have put together this army, always worried about an attack from the Etruscans. And then Junius to the Samnites, Aemilius to the Etruscans, as I have written there. Now, before we get to any of the fighting, let's just do internal politics the upcoming year. Now, a censor, when the position was first created, was for 5 years. They made a law that reduced it to just 18 months, when they realized how ridiculously powerful a censor is. So that already happened in the past. In 311 BC, Appius Claudius's 18 months comes to an end. Trying to figure it out. Appius Claudius,
Bubulcus.
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 People
Bob. All right. So Appius Claudius, once his 18 months are over, he refuses to step down from being censor. So, arguably he's illegally elected, does things that a censor wasn't supposed to do, was supposed to step down when his co-censor stepped down, and now his 18 months are up, and he's still refusing to step down. Go ahead.
Can't they accuse him of trying to be a king or something?
Yeah, they can accuse him of all sorts of things. And it's not like they haven't been trying, and people have been trying to bring trial against him. And so it gets so bad that some tribune of the plebs, a bunch of them come together, and basically put him on trial. And say, it's ridiculous, we've been lenient, blah, 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 but your 18 months are up, you have to step down, that's the law. Appius Claudius says that's ridiculous. When the position was created, it was created for 5 years. This 18 months that came after it only applied to the censors that it was passed for. It was a law specific to them. And the fact that all these other censors happen to step down in 18 months is their own choice. You can step down from an office whenever you would like. But I have 5 years. Now, some of the tribunes of the plebs are the ones trying to bring trial against him, get him removed. What's the problem is, there's a lot of people who really like him. And he has a lot of public support. And so other tribune of the plebs keep blocking any attempt to have him removed. And so he's going to serve out his entire 5 years. No problem. What happens when you have friends in high places?
And you get to
What happens
say
when you
who's
build?
in high places.
Yeah, you put him in the high places, all your friends. So he's going to stay all 5 years, and he's going to complete these great works. Lucky Romans.
Yep.
And it probably needs to, because those are going to take a hot minute to build.
Okay, last weird thing that happened internally at Rome. One of the rules made so a bunch of flute players could no longer enter the temple of Jupiter and get like a free meal that they were supposed to get for a specific festival. And this was a really big deal to them. And so they up and leave the city of Rome all together, and they go to the city of Tibur, wherever it is, somewhere outside of Rome. All together, all the flute players. Now the problem is some of Rome's religious festivals require flute players. You need flute players. And it's very important. And all the flute players are outside the city as one of these festivals are coming up. So what does Rome do? Rome gets with some of the nobles in Tibur, and they come up with a way to get their flute players back. They say, all you nobles, what you're going to do is you're going to hire a bunch of these flute players to come play at your house because you're putting on a party. And so a bunch of nobles all have a bunch of parties, and they invite the flute players, getting all the flute players at least one of these parties. While you're there, you're going to get them drunk out of their mind. When they pass out, we're going to haul them back to Rome. And that's how we're going to get our flute players back. Back.
Or gave him a free meal. I don't understand.
Flute players are black.
Yeah.
Yeah, free meal.
Something.
Or
And entering the temple, they felt like they had very much been wronged. anyways, they get back and they renegotiate their position and they get their privileges back. They get to go back to the temple and they get to have their food. And on top of that, they get to wear whatever full dress means. They get to wear their full dress for 3 full days in Rome for a festival. And down to Livius' day, he doesn't give a lot of details because it's a festival that existed in his day.
Yeah.
He's explained to the people there, that's where this festival that we have originates from.
That's weird.
So, happy flute players. Alright, back to war. Because remember, we have our 2 guys. We got Junius to the Samnites and Emilius to the Etruscans. Not sure which one we're following first.
It's so funny, it's only the flute players, like, it's not other instruments that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many instruments there are at the time.
Lyres.
Yeah, lyres.
Oh,
You got your strings, your drums, your flute. And that's probably most of it. Alright. So now, war with the Samnites. Whichever one got sent against the Samnites, I already forgot which one. Junius. Junius is the one sent against the Samnites. Okay, so Cluvia. See if I can remember where that is. Nope, I can't. It's on there somewhere. And I'm just not seeing it. Cluvia, whatever it is, it's a Samnite city somewhere on the map. It was previously taken by Rome, and now it's being besieged by the Samnites.
Is it that one on the top? By the border?
Yes, thank you. I knew it was up north. Alright, there it is. That's the city we're talking about. Now it's something that's already been taken by the Romans. They have control over it. They have a garrison inside of it. The Samnites are currently besieging the city, starving them out. The garrison ends up surrendering to the army with the understanding you get to preserve your life if you surrender to save us the hassle of having to take the city. The Samnites brutally kill the entire garrison after they surrender. So once again, Rome not happy about that.
Isn't their capital still being sieged?
Capital's still being sieged, as far as I understand.
And they're just pissing off
Yeah.
the Romans more and more.
They didn't learn from that wise man and that passed there, right?
Well, they kind of did. They killed them all.
That's a good point.
All right, Junius here. Found an easy way to pronounce it. Junius here leads his consular army. He was the one sent to deal with the Samnites. When they get word that this has happened, his troops are absolutely enraged. So once again, he marches his troops up there, and in a single day, they retake the city, and now they've got control of the city again. They weren't able to get the Samnite army in the field, so the Samnite army, they don't have enough to go and take on a consular army at the time still recovering. When he goes and he retakes the city, he is extremely harsh with the city, and they have every single adult male in the city killed. So I think for them that would have been 16 and up is what you're roughly guessing based off of what they look like. So killing every single adult male in the city,
Based off of
very
what they look
harsh
like.
punishment.
Just because they surrendered?
No,
They
No,
killed
because
all
they
the
killed
garrison.
the garrison, the Romans there surrendered and were brutally killed.
Gotcha.
Army's now enraged because that could have been them, their garrison, their troops. They could have been garrisoned at a city. So they go absolutely enraged, kill every adult male. Whether that was a consular order or whether that was the army just running rampant, I don't know. But absolutely devastating for the city. And right when they're done with that, they're now marching back to the capital city, since the Samnites can't put together a big enough army to deal with the consular army at this point. And they're going to go straight for the capital city. It's been besieged for a while now, it's been starving for a while now, so now they take the army absolutely enraged and they just storm the city. And they are successful. And they're able to take the city. When they take the city, they do an extremely Roman thing, and they are extremely kind to all the citizens of the capital city. They try to keep everything under wraps, make sure no unnecessary deaths occur, trying to make it very clear, you break the rules, we'll break the rules harder. You don't break the rules, we'll play very nice. So, sends a very good message, especially because that was the Samnites' capital city. And so now the Samnites' capital city, the Romans are not going to hang on to the city. They're not going to try and hold it as one of their own cities. They're just plundering the city, taking everything they can, and they're going to get a huge payday.
After 2 years?
After 2 years of sieging the city.
Which they definitely
Aren't they
need.
trying to take over all of the Samnite territory?
I doubt at this time that they're thinking we want to control the Samnite territory. I think at this time they're thinking we want to get everything out of fighting the Samnites that we can get out of fighting the Samnites.
That's fair.
I would guess that they're thinking at this time trying to hold the capital city of the Samnites would be next to impossible. And that is just asking for rebellion after rebellion. But no idea. What I do know is they don't keep the city. They don't try to keep the city, they just plunder it and they go on their merry way, getting tons of plunder, getting tons of loot, just got the capital city.
There are just so many men, you have to assume there are a bajillion motivations.
Now, with the capital town being taken and the Roman army being stationed wherever it is, and now being just loaded up with very valuable goods, the Samnites say, we have got to do everything we can to put together an army and beat these guys. They just took the capital city, that will enrage some men, get people to volunteer. Samnites are going to now be able to put together an army that can actually match the Roman army once again. And so they do that. And they put together a Roman army once again, and so the Samnites have their army somewhere.
They put together a Samnite army once again.
Yeah, sorry, did I say Roman? Yeah, so the Samnites now, after that event, are enraged enough, people volunteering, whatever is happening, to actually get an army together again, and the Romans have an army together again. Now the Samnites say, we cannot just beat them in the field. You know what we really need another of? We need another Caudine Force. Another one of those, we learned our lesson, we'll kill them all this time, it'll be great, we just got to somehow set up another Caudine Force. So how can we do that? Well, this Roman army with all their plunder, a very normal thing that would happen when an army invades a territory is that territory would try and hide all their livestock so that you can't get it. And so this army leaks to the Roman army where they have a bunch of their livestock. And they intentionally go and put their livestock basically hidden in trenches. So there's some big trench going along the way. And following that trench, supposedly, is going to lead you to where the cattle are hidden. So the Romans need to go. There's going to be some trench that they have to go through to get to where the cattle are hidden. What's the idea? When the Romans are marching through the trench, we're going to ambush them from the sides. Now, it's very thick woods over here, so lots of trees on the sides that the Samnites can hide in. So the Samnites are going to be up hiding on the hills. The Romans are going to be marching down through this trench as they're looking for their cows.
When you say trenches, it's kind of like it's not like a man.
Not like a man-built trench. Just a
like a little small valley or.
yeah, like a waterway.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So it's definitely going to be wide enough that the Roman army is going to be able to march through this thing just fine in their column formation. And so they set up this situation, and it works perfect for the Samnites. The Romans take the bait. There are actual cows there to even help bait the Romans, so the Romans are able to send scouts or whatever to go and gather up all this cattle that they want. And so the Romans, they come marching through the trench, exactly as you expect, the Samnites on the side. And from a bird's eye view, when we're looking down on it, so you got the Roman column now. It's going to be some big, long out column. Well, it's going to be broken up into their maniples marching down as they go, front and back. And on the sides, you're going to have the Samnites attacking to ambush them downhill into the sides of the Romans. Couldn't ask for a better situation for the Samnites. And that's exactly what happens. They ambush them, they come down. Rome has switched to this maniple system. And it's very easy to adjust on the fly to this oncoming ambush. And so while initially they're taking losses, Rome's able to pretty easily get organized and starts pushing back. Now I drew these super steep, whatever, but they keep pushing and pushing, taking losses until they get up on level ground. So they just push like crazy against the Samnites until they can get up on the level ground and they're no longer fighting downhill. And once they push the Samnites back to up here, now the Romans are done just trying to push, and now they're going into kill mode and trying to actually kill them now. When they go into kill mode, that's when the Samnites panic and try retreating. Their problem, these woods are really thick woods. They were great for hiding in, not so great for running through. And so they can't retreat. And so it's way too easy to pursue them. And so they end up suffering a massive defeat once again.
Rome wins so much. You almost think that they just don't record their losses.
Or you think they're on their way to become the greatest empire. One of the two.
That's also true.
And then, after that, fighting up the army, killing whoever they kill, taking wherever hostages they take. They continue marching down their trench, and they go and they find their cows, and they get their cows. And they take the cows with them. And so they come back even richer than they first anticipated. And the Samnites, once again, throwing everything they have at these poor Romans, all circumstances aligning for them, things are not working out. Now Rome is fighting on two fronts. So they were fighting the Samnites down south. Now let's talk about what's happening with the Etruscans up north. The Etruscans up north are finally wising up to what it is Rome is doing. Rome is becoming too powerful. They are now terrified that Rome is fielding an army against the Samnites and against them. Go back 30 years, and it's a coin toss. Who's the greatest power in Italy? Is it the Samnites? Is it the Romans? Is it the Etruscans? That would be a very tough call to make. Now you got Rome taking on both the Etruscans and the Samnites at the same time. Absolutely crazy. This is terrifying the Etruscans. They've likely had the opinion this whole time, if we needed to, we could all organize together and go deal with the Romans if it ever came to that. Now the question is, even if we all organize together and it comes to that with the help of the Samnites, could we even do this?
Yeah, because the Samnites are being destroyed.
Right, so for the Etruscans, it's kind of turning into a now or never type moment. And so for the first time in pretty much all this class, the Etruscan League is actually going to come together and field an army.
Oh yeah, because it's always been just a few cities.
Yeah, it's always just been a few cities against Rome. Rome has never had to deal with the Etruscans as a whole coming to fight against them. Arguably, out of the three, the Etruscans can field the biggest army,
Seems to have fight at least.
Yeah, they have.
but they also fight the least. They've just been enjoying a bunch of internal prosperity this entire time. They've been on a slow decline, but things internally in Etruria have been pretty good, pretty stable. So the Etruscan League now organized, and they're going to besiege Satricum. That's the town I was talking about. So I made it that blue dot right there. Now this is outlining your major trade routes, including anytime the Etruscans have roads, it's going to be along those paths. And so that blue one right there is the town that they want back that Rome has control over. Because the only way that this connects back to the coast is going to be to that river, and so it has to come past Satricum there. A very important city to control for the sake of controlling trade in Etruria.
Where is Rome on this map?
It's at
Sorry,
the bottom.
Rome is right here at the bottom. Fill it in. And here's the Tiber River.
Yeah, that took me a bit. Yeah.
Okay, so there's the Tiber River. V is right there if that helps you get a little bit better. Fidene is probably going to be like right here
Okay.
on that side of the Tiber. Okay, so there's a city that the Etruscans want back. City that controls a lot of trade in Rome. That's where the army is going to be marching to take. Now, the Etruscans think that this is a perfect opportunity because Rome is very occupied with the Samnites right now. And so they're halfway suspicious that Rome won't even bother sending an army up. So they're shocked when Rome is going to be fielding two armies at the same time, rather than just focusing on one enemy or the other.
Well, yeah, and Rome has had this army training.
Yeah, a bunch of these young guys who are going to be in the army had some time to actually get trained. Okay, so they go to work setting siege to besieging Satricum. And Barbula, he arrives. He was the consul who was in charge of fighting the Etruscans. He arrived and puts an end to the siege. And the Romans are able to position themselves in between the Samnites and the town and get resupplied by the town, so they're going to be well supplied. So we got our town down here, S again, right?
Yes.
For Satricum. The Romans built their camp between the city and the Samnites, something like that. So not the
Not
Samnites.
the Etruscans.
We're finding Etruscans. Probably going to say Samnites a lot. Now, first day comes and goes, nothing happens. Second day, Etruscans get up very early at first light, and they go out and they line up for the fight. They're not going to take the fight directly to the Romans, but they're going to stand there and just wait for the Romans to come out. When our consul here, Barbula, sees them coming out first thing, he tells his men, don't rush, eat a good breakfast, and then we'll go out a couple hours later, we'll line up. And so the Romans show up a couple hours later, and so the two armies are all lined up, facing each other down, getting ready for the fight. neither one of them being the one who wants to initiate the attacking. It gets clear into the afternoon before any fighting actually starts. And so into the afternoon, the Etruscans are finally the ones to initiate. They go and they march on the Romans and they start attacking the Romans. And initially, it looks like it's going to be a stalemate. They're both fighting each other. Everything's kind of coming to a halt. Remember, the Etruscans are still largely using the old phalanx formation. And the Romans kind of holding themselves up against a phalanx type formation. And so it's a big stalemate. But now those poor Hastati, the guys fighting at the front, they're starting to get exhausted. And so what does Rome do? Switches them out for the Principes. And it's very easy for them to maneuver and do this. When you're lining up in your phalanx formation, it's much harder to switch out with a guy back here for the front. That's not something you can just easily do. And so when they switch out to their Principes now, they're veterans, they're more elite, that's when the tide of the battle changes. And now they start beating the Etruscans. And so the Etruscans end up having to flee from the battle. It was a long fought battle.
You say Samnites on accident right there.
Our Etruscans end up having to flee from the battle. They can't hold out against the Principes. They're now exhausted. They have to retreat. But since the fighting started so late in the day, by the time it's all happening, night is already falling, and so they're not going to take huge casualties from the retreat. They did, however, lose men in the fighting. It was a long, hard-fought battle, pretty much a stalemate most of the time. Both sides taking losses from the battle. Now, the Etruscans lost more men than the Romans in the actual fighting. What happened after that, how injured they were, I don't know. But because of how long they were fighting, Livy reports that more men died on the Roman side, more men died after the battle than died in the battle from their wounds.
Is it part of the phalanx formation?
So the Etruscans are using a soft phalanx formation. Not like what the Greeks have, a much softer version of it, but still that style of fighting. And the Romans now using the maniple system.
Wait, why did more people die?
From the wounds, their wounds that they sustained from fighting so long.
Is that abnormal?
Getting stabbed and stuff.
So they probably lost 200 soldiers died the day of, and then another 500 died throughout the following week or whatever,
And that's
just succumbing to their wounds. The way he's reporting it, it's abnormal.
Interesting.
So I think it is
But
abnormal.
why though? They
Probably if you get wounded enough that you're going to die, you probably typically die in the battle.
Yeah, but that happens all the time, and they always have sustained fighting all the time. I just don't understand why it would be.
Probably not this sustained. This is probably an abnormally long battle.
Gotcha.
So long, hard fighting, a bunch of time due to their
Stay out
wounds,
there for hours.
but no decisive victory one way or the other. So it's not like the Etruscans lost their army. And so now we're at 310 BC. Sugar.
Yeah.
I want to end after 39 BC. It's the perfect time to end, but we won't be able to do that in time. So we'll end it there for today, and we'll finish up the second Samnite Wars next time, and hopefully get to the third Samnite Wars.
Yay.
Jeez.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
The second Samnite Wars are the great Samnite Wars.